Okay, guys, so congratulations. It's our last week of school. And for our very last thing that you're going to learn is called dihybrid crosses. And this is just when we look at instead of just one trait like eye color, hair color, widow's peak, fur color, whatever it is, the probability of the offspring inheriting only one trait. Now we're looking at the probability of the offspring inheriting two traits at the same time. So, what is the probability that the offspring will have blue eyes and a widow's peak? And so, we're looking at what is the probability of multiple traits being inherited by the offspring. And so instead of our typical 4-box Punnett square, we have the 16-box Punnett square. I always found these really intimidating when I was in high school and even in college. But now that I know how to do them, they're really not so bad. So you will have a couple of these on your test. So you want to make sure that you're familiar with how to do them. They're really not so bad. But there are a couple key steps to make sure that you do it the correct way, or else you will just probably get really confused if you set it up the wrong way. So dihybrid crosses is used to predict the inheritance patterns of, I'm going to just write this in, okay, haha, writing a color. Okay, of two traits. So again, we could technically do crosses for 3 traits, but then instead of having 16 boxes, we would have 64 boxes. And it just kind of goes up exponentially. So we are going to learn how to do the Punnett square with the 16 boxes over here, but we're not going to do ones that have like 64. And so to do all these problems, you need to remember the terminology that we had in this graphic organizer. So a quick review. Remember that alleles are letters used to represent the different versions of a gene. The uppercase letter represents the dominant allele. This is the one that's going to show up if it is present. The lowercase letter is used to represent the recessive allele. And this is not going to show up unless you have 2 lowercase letters. The alleles combine to form the genotype, which is the combination of letters. So this we can categorize these different letter combinations as homozygous or heterozygous. Heterozygous means you have one uppercase and one lowercase. So right off the bat, we know exactly what heterozygous is going to look like because it means you have hetero different, so 2 different alleles. Homozygous, we need to know, are there 2 uppercase alleles or 2 lowercase alleles? So we have to designate either homozygous dominant or homozygous recessive. They could also just tell you that the person or the animal or whatever you're looking at just possesses the recessive trait. So let's say blue eyes are recessive to brown eyes. Instead of saying homozygous recessive for blue eyes, they could just say they have blue eyes. Because if they are showing the recessive trait, you know they have to be homozygous recessive. They can't just say that they have the dominant trait without giving you more information because you could either be homozygous dominant and express the dominant trait or heterozygous and also express the dominant trait. And that leads us to our phenotype, which is our physical appearance. So what does it look like? Homozygous dominant looks like the dominant trait. Heterozygous looks like the dominant trait. And again, the only time you actually see the recessive trait is when you're homozygous recessive. So it's important to note that these two have the same phenotype, but they have a different genotype. So that's always a test question I like to ask is which two have the same phenotype but different genotypes? And the answer would be homozygous dominant and heterozygous have the same phenotype. They look alike, same physical appearance, but they have different letter combinations. So let's use that information to answer these questions here. So we're looking here at aliens. In aliens, green bodies are dominant to white bodies. So I always like to make myself a little key. And then lowercase g would be white. And round heads are dominant to square heads. One second, I hear the baby crying. Let me see if I can pause. Sorry. What's on earth now? Ha. Okay, so sorry. She always chooses when I make these videos to cry. Okay, so what are the expected genotypic and phenotypic probabilities of the offspring resulting from a cross between two green round-headed aliens that are both heterozygous for each trait? So first thing we need to know is what are the actual genotypes of our parents? So we need to know what the letter combinations are. So it says that both parents are heterozygous for both traits. So if you're heterozygous for body color, you're going to be big G, little g. And if you're heterozygous for body shape, it's going to be, or head shape, sorry. If you're heterozygous for head shape, then you would be one capital R and one lowercase r. And it says both parents are heterozygous for both traits. So both parents are going to have a capital and a lowercase of each letter. So we're going to have mom is going to be heterozygous for both traits, and dad is heterozygous for both traits. Now FOIL to determine the gametes for each parent. So this is where people get tripped up. So they get to this point and they figure out, okay, they're heterozygous for both traits, and then they want to put the letters across and across, and you're going to get the wrong answer if you do this. This part right here is extremely, extremely important that you do it. And once you do it, the answer will be easy to determine. But if you forget this, it's going to make your life really difficult. And that's why I always got tripped up on these when I did them in high school and college, because I never did the foiling. So foiling is like algebra when you FOIL. You guys are all hopefully familiar with foiling, like when you're factoring and stuff, the first, outer, inner, last. And so to do the FOIL, you're going to need to do all the different combinations of G and R that could possibly be. So here, all the possible combinations of G and R that could possibly result are going to be from multiplying or combining the G with the first R, the G with the outer R. So we're going to have the first combination is going to be capital G, capital R. That's the first. The next combination is capital G, lowercase r. And then we have our inner, the lowercase g, and the capital R. And then last is the lowercase g and the lowercase r. So we have the first, outer, inner, last. Every possible combination of G and R that could result. Gametes is another term for the cells that the parents are going to donate. So females would donate egg cells, and these are the gametes that could result, or the genetic combinations that could be present in those egg cells for the female. And then the male is going to donate sperm, and so he would have different traits that he could donate based on what his genetic combinations were as well. So when we talk about the gametes, we're talking about what are the potential letter combinations that the parents can donate, which alleles do the parents possess that they could donate, and what are the combinations of those alleles that they could donate. So when we do, this was the dad's gametes that he could contribute, and then we'll do the mom's gametes that she can contribute the same way. So it's going to be capital G, capital R. Oops, don't like the way I did that. Outer, capital G, lowercase r. And then we'll do the inner, little g, goodness, little g, capital R, little g, little r. So these end up being the exact same gametes that are going to be contributed by each parent, but that's because they had the same genotype to begin with. If you have different genotypes for the parents, then their gametes that they contribute will be different. So now we can take these gametes and put them on the outside of our Punnett square, and then we're going to combine to see what different combinations the offspring could inherit. And when you combine them, you're going to have 4 letters in each box. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the dad's gametes in blue, and I'm going to put these across the top. So across every box on the top, I'm going to have 2 letters. So I would put this here, this here, this one here, and this one here. Now mom's, I'm going to put in pink. GR, GR, little g, capital R, and little g, little r. Now I'm going to, just like in the monohybrid cross or the small Punnett square, these are going to come down. The top ones go down, and then the side ones go. Why do I keep missing the pink? All right, the side ones go across. And just by convention, you like to put the G's next to each other and the R's next to each other. And also, typically, we write the larger letter first. So just to make it easier when you're all done to count all your boxes. So I'm going to bring my capital G down. I'm going to leave a space for the other G because I like to keep my letters together. And then I'm going to put my capital R here. And then same for this one, I'm bringing the capital G down. I'm going to leave a space for mom's gametes, and then I'm going to put the R here, and then bring the lowercase g down, leave a space for mom, capital R, capital R, capital R, capital R, lowercase g, lowercase g, lowercase g, lowercase g, lowercase r. Okay, so now moms are going to come across, so she'll have the capital G and the capital R, capital G, and then again, typically I would rewrite this if I were writing it on paper to have the capital R first. So capital G, capital R, capital G, capital R, capital G, lowercase r, capital G, lowercase r, capital G, lowercase r, capital G, lowercase r, lowercase g, capital R, lowercase g, capital R, lowercase g, capital R, lowercase g, capital R, lowercase g, lowercase r, lowercase g, lowercase r, lowercase g, lowercase r, lowercase g, lowercase r. Okay, so this is a bit of a mess. And again, if I was writing this by hand, I would find a way to always put the capital letter first because it just makes it look better. But we can still analyze our Punnett squares looking like this. So next step, after you've figured out all your possible genetic combinations, you need to figure out what the possible phenotypes of the offspring could be. So we're looking at the color of their bodies and the size of or the shape of their head. So the different phenotypes that they could have is that they could have a green body and a round head. They could have a green body and a square head. They could have a white body and a round head, or they could have a white body and a square head. So here, I like to think of as double dominant. So they have at least one capital G, and they have at least one capital R, because they're going to be showing both dominant traits. Green and square means they have a capital G, and then it doesn't matter if they have another capital G or lowercase g. Either way, they're going to show the dominant green. And then to be square, they would have to be two lowercase r's. White and round, now we would have a lowercase g, and then a capital R, and it doesn't matter because at least one capital R means that you're going to have the dominant trait for round head. And then white and square, you're going to have finally both recessive traits, meaning you have all lowercase letters. So we're going to go through and we're going to count how many have at least one capital G and one capital R, meaning they're both green and round, and we're going to put that number here. And this number is going to be out of 16. Then we're going to count how many are green and square, meaning they have at least one capital G and then they have two little r's. So you kind of get the gist. We're going to start, I'll do these in yellow. So one capital G and one capital R. This one has one capital G and one capital R. One capital G, one capital R. Yep. One capital G, one capital R. One capital G, one capital R, one capital G, one capital R, one capital G, one capital R. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 9 of them out of 16 are going to have one capital G and one capital R. Hold on one second. Okay, so now we're going to see how many are green and square, meaning they have at least one capital G and two lowercase r's because they're showing the recessive trait for head shape. So green and square, I'm going to make that one this color. And we'll say, okay, 1 capital G and 2 lowercase r's. Okay, that one. 1 capital G and 2 lowercase r's. And then 1 capital G and 2 lowercase r's. So there are 3, green and square. And then white and round, meaning 2 lowercase g's and 1 capital R. I'll do in this gray color. 2 lowercase g's and 1 capital R. 2 lowercase g's and 1 capital R. And 2 lowercase g's and 1 capital R. There's going to be 3. And then lastly, white and square is going to have all recessive. It's going to be this purple color. And we only have 1 white and square. So the probability of having an offspring that is green bodied with a round head is 9 out of 16. The probability of having one that has a green body and a square head is 3 out of 16. Probability of having one that has a white body and a round head is also 3 out of 16. And then the probability of having both recessive traits show up is 1 out of 16. So sorry, that's kind of messy. A true dihybrid cross. And take a note, the true dihybrid means that both parents are heterozygous for both traits. So right here, this right here means that both parents are heterozygous for both traits, means it is a true dihybrid. We'll always have a phenotypic ratio of 9 to 3 to 3 to 1. Now, that's only if both parents are heterozygous for both traits. You can go ahead and know that the ratio that's going to show up is 9 to 3 to 3 to 1. If one is homozygous dominant for both traits, or one's homozygous for body color but heterozygous for head shape or something like that, and they're not both hybrids for both traits, then your ratio is going to be different than 9 to 3 to 3 to 1. But if you read in a problem and you notice that it's a true dihybrid, then you can go ahead and just know that the probability or the phenotypic ratio is going to be 9 to 3 to 3 to 1. Remember, all of those are out of 16.